Welcome to Turn East, a show devoted to defending as respectfully as possible and in a spirit of Christian love the Orthodox Christian faith. This pilot episode is the first of what may be many short talks on the doctrine of Sola Scriptura. This is the Protestant teaching that the Bible alone is authoritative for the faith and practice of the believer. Over a month ago, my daughters and I planned to bake a raspberry swirl pound cake for my wife. It turned out to be a total train wreck. Here's what the cake was supposed to look like. And here is how it actually turned out. What went wrong? After all, I found a recipe that was profitable for instruction on how to bake this sort of cake so that I'd be complete and thoroughly prepared for this good work. Of course, what I just said is a play on a passage from 2 Timothy, which many Protestant apologists will recognize. In chapter 3, verses 16 and 17, we read the following: "All Scripture is given by inspiration of God, and is profitable for doctrine, for reproof, for correction, for instruction in righteousness, that the man of God may be complete, thoroughly equipped for every good work." Let's set aside the fact that the scriptures St. Paul was referring to were the Hebrew scriptures. The New Testament did not yet exist. It would seem that if we were to accept the logic of those Protestants who cite this passage as a proof text for Sola Scriptura, then we must reject everything, including the New Testament, as superfluous. Now, I know that it might be tempting to dismiss my analogy of the raspberry swirl pound cake offhand. At a superficial level, it might seem silly to compare one's approach to the Bible with one's approach to baking a cake. But let's look more deeply. As sufficient as the recipe was, I have very little experience with baking, and no one with the necessary experience was around to guide me so that I'd be able to apply these instructions correctly. I was guilty of following solum consequat, or recipe alone, and the result was a disaster. With respect to the Bible, profitable though it certainly is, this doesn't guarantee that I'll interpret and apply its instructions the way I should. In other words, the real question perhaps is not whether the Bible is sufficient, but whether I am sufficient to interpret it correctly. It so often seems that Sola Scriptura really amounts to ego solus, or me alone. But it's necessary to approach the scriptures with the humility of the Ethiopian eunuch, realizing, as the fathers have always understood, that its mysteries are only revealed to the purified. Protestant apologists often conflate two issues: the special or exclusive role that the Bible plays in the Christian spiritual life, and the person or people who have the ability or authority to interpret it. It's as if they think that settling the former issue settles the latter. This is why the previously cited passage from 2 Timothy is imagined to be a solid proof text for Sola Scriptura. In a future episode, I will focus attention on the issue of authority as I explain why we Orthodox regard Sola Scriptura as a false doctrine.